Here we go! Queens of the Stone Age. In this case, it'll be the New Stone Age. Today's topic, the Neolithic Revolution. We learned about the Paleolithic Revolution. This is the Neolithic Revolution. Neo, meaning new. And of course, a revolution is a change or a turn. There's the little queens here. Queens of the New Stone Age. The song is called No One Knows. Well, guess what? We know. We know a lot about this Neolithic Revolution. Let's just talk real quick about this term, revolution, which means a change or a turn. I always think of a bike tire, right? If a bike tire spins, it revolves, it goes through a revolution, it turns, it changes. This is a non-political revolution. Sometimes we think of political revolutions like a war with the guns and shooting and overthrowing governments. This is a non-political revolution. It is a change in the way that humans lived. And of course, this Neolithic, we learned Paleolithic, this is the New Stone Age. And so what made it so darn new? Well, let's take a look at it through the eyes of social scientists. Let's start real quickly with looking at it through the point of view of a historian. Let's jump in the shoes of a historian. Historians love timelines, right? And when we're talking about this Neolithic Revolution, we're going back to about 10,000 years before Christ, or before Common Era. That would be a term that we should probably start using. And we are spanning all the way to about 2,000 years before Christ, or before Common Era. So that would be the timeline that the historian's interested in. And what a historian is going to find happening during this time, of course, that is the when. We need the who and the what. We've got these Cro-Magnons, which of course slowly evolve into modern humans. So you have Cro-Magnon man, and then eventually Homo sapien, and that's us. A little smiley face there, that's us. Not the United States, but us as in humans, modern upright walking hominid humans. And you've got these Cro-Magnon man, and what they were up to pretty simply is they had started to build shelters for themselves. No more wandering around looking for food and shelter, so they're a lot less nomadic. Right? They settled down. They started to settle in. And what allowed them to probably settle in is the development of agriculture, becoming more of an agricultural people, growing their own food. Right? And those developments in agriculture and being able to produce food on your own is a big deal. And then, of course, the domestication of animals, being able to raise your food source right next to where you are living. Great, so that is the way a historian's going to look at things. Let's just swing over. We will eventually spend a lot more time on the geography of this time period. Of course, we'll just make one little leap of faith here. If a historian's telling us that there was more growing of food and more raising of animals directly next to where you're living, then the geography is very simply going to be in river valleys. Excuse me, you need, of course, that water supply to grow food and to feed the animals. You're going to need that water supply, and you're going to need the vegetation around that water supply to both eat and feed the animals. And so we'll just leave it right now at river valleys. Maybe a brief discussion when we get there of the silt and what silt is and how those nutrient deposits will eventually help lead to raising the animals and growing better food sources. That's it. The last thing we want to focus on in this video is maybe the sociology of the time period. And we'll take a look at a quick picture. So a sociologist worries about human interaction. And of course, the human interaction during this time period was focused towards more of a community atmosphere. If people are starting to settle down in the same areas, you're going to start to see the building of communities and communal living. And of course, how do we know this happened? We've got artifacts. We've got archaeologists that have dug up these communities. And the community that we're going to focus on, sort of as our example will be Catalhoyuk. Oh boy, I gotta have to check my spelling on that one. I'm missing a letter here. Let me see what I'm missing here. I gotta go Catalhoyuk. Oh, the U, of course. I got a little space there, and I didn't tuck my U in. Catalhoyuk. And this is in Turkey. And let's just swing over behind the screen here. We can switch screens. And we'll take a look at a few of these Neolithic Revolution developments. First, we start to see some new tools. Maybe we didn't quite get to the economics of it, but you start to see stuff that's focused on hunting and things like plows and ringstones, which allow us to understand that there was probably some food production going on living in an area. Of course, you don't need a plow if you're wandering around as a nomad. And so the plows that have been found are obvious evidence that people have started to settle into an area. Here is Catalhoyuk. I think this picture is a little bit more crisp. And here is an early community. You can see what's left of these walls, right? And perhaps even little streets, which are, of course, not even as wide as our streets nowadays, maybe like 6 or 7 feet wide. But you start to have these pathways through the community, and we start to see tunnelings in for shelter. And this is what is left over of this old Turkish community of Catalhoyuk. There's some more, of course, the grinding stone, another great piece of evidence that humans at this point in time had started to settle down and grow their own food and produce food right where they lived. Great. So that is the basic gist of the Neolithic Revolution. We'll swing back over to the camera so you can check out the notes one last time. And that's it. Next time we tune in, we'll be covering the Neolithic Revolution from the point of view of perhaps an economist, perhaps a political scientist, or even a psychologist, an anthropologist for sure, right? The culture, although we start to see the culture sort of building in, even in our discussion of those tools here in a moment, and our discussion of what a historian's interested in, we start to see how an anthropologist is going to view the culture of this time period. Great. Thanks.